Hello, ladies, and welcome to our new Bible reading series. I'm Cindra Enlow from heavenlyplace.com, and this year, as we read through the Bible, we'll explore God's incredible story of love and redemption. If you're looking for a Bible reading plan that's simple and doable, this is it. So let's get started and discover the heart of God together, one chapter at a time. Hello, ladies, and welcome back to our one-year Bible reading plan. This is week 21, day 4. And today's reading is Psalm 99, 2 Samuel 24, 1 Chronicles 21 and 22, and then Psalm 30. And in our reading from 2 Samuel, we're going to come to a moment where David makes a serious mistake. He orders a census to be taken of Israel's fighting men. And, at first glance, that may not seem like a big deal because, God did tell David before to take a census of the people, but this census was done without God's command, and it came from a heart that was beginning to lean on numbers and human strength rather than fully trusting in God. We see in 1 Chronicles 21 that Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel. So that's just telling us that there was a spiritual battle going on. The enemy was opposing Israel, and he tempted David into making a decision that would lead to judgment. And, David wasn't forced to, but like us, he had a moment where pride or possibly insecurity crept in, and he gave in to Satan's temptation. And we will see that even Joab, his military commander, questioned the order, but David pushed forward and wanted it his way. And almost immediately after the count was finished, his conscience was pricked. Conviction sometimes comes very quickly. But he confessed to the Lord, saying that he had sinned greatly, and he turned back to God in repentance. So the Lord gives David 3 choices for his consequences, and David wisely chooses to fall into the hands of God, trusting in his mercy and not on the mercy of people or mankind. These verses are very revealing about spiritual warfare. We see that David actually sees the angel that is sent to bring destruction on the people of Israel. He goes and makes a sacrifice in the place that the temple would later be built. It's going to be a future place of worship and sacrifice. So what began in failure in David's life ended in redemption. And, we just see the mercy of God. And then in the Psalms today, we see holiness and faithfulness of God. In Psalm 99, it reminds us that the Lord is exalted and holy. It's a phrase that's repeated a few times in this psalm. And then Psalm 30 was written by David for the dedication of the temple site, the very spot we just read about. And he declares that God turned his mourning into dancing and clothed him with gladness. So from failure to joy, from sorrow to praise, and, that's just what God does. And here's where we see the heart of God. He doesn't let our failures have the final word. When we humble ourselves and turn back to him, he meets us with mercy, and that's what David was dependent on. It goes back to the thought that he does all things for our good and his glory. Okay, ladies, let's get started in Psalm 99. Psalm 99. Yahweh reigns, let the peoples tremble. He sits enthroned among the cherubim, let the earth be moved. Yahweh is great in Zion. He is high above all the peoples. Let them praise your great and awesome name. He is holy. The king's strength also loves justice. You establish equity. You execute justice and righteousness in Jacob. Exalt Yahweh our God. Worship at his footstool. He is holy. Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel was among those who call on his name. They called on Yahweh, and he answered them. He spoke to them in the pillar of cloud. They kept his testimonies, the statute that he gave them. You answered them, Yahweh our God. You are a God who forgave them, although you took vengeance for their doings. Exalt Yahweh our God, worship at his holy hill, for Yahweh our God is holy. 2 Samuel 24. Again Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he moved David against them, saying, Go, count Israel and Judah. The king said to Joab, the captain of the army, who was with him, Now go back and forth through all the tribes of Israel, from Dan even to Beersheba, and count the people, that I may know the sum of the people. Joab said to the king, Now may Yahweh your God add to the people, however many they may be, 100 times, and may the eyes of my lord the king see it. But why does my lord the king delight in this thing? Notwithstanding, the king's word prevailed against Joab and against the captains of the army. Joab and the captains of the army went out from the presence of the king to count the people of Israel. They passed over the Jordan and encamped in Aroer, on the right side of the city that is in the middle of the valley of Gad, and to Jezer. Then they came to Gilead and to the land of Tahtim Hodshi, and they came to Danjan and around to Sidon, and came to the stronghold of Tyre, and to all the cities of the Hivites and of the Canaanites, and they went out to the south of Judah at Beersheba. So when they had gone back and forth through all the land, they came to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. Joab gave up the sum of the counting of the people to the king, and there were in Israel 800,000 valiant men who drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. David's heart struck him after he had counted the people. David said to Yahweh, I have sinned greatly in that which I have done. But now, Yahweh, put away, I beg you, the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. When David rose up in the morning, Yahweh's word came to the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and speak to David. Yahweh says, I offer you 3 things. Choose one of them, that I may do it to you. So Gad came to David and told him, saying, Shall 7 years of famine come to you in your land? Or will you flee 3 months before your foes while they pursue you? Or shall there be 3 days pestilence in your land? Now answer, and consider what answer I shall return to him who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in distress. Let us fall now into Yahweh's hand, for his mercies are great. Let me not fall into man's hand. So Yahweh sent a pestilence on Israel from the morning even to the appointed time, and 70,000 men died of the people from Dan even to Beersheba. When the angel stretched out his hand toward Jerusalem to destroy it, Yahweh relented of the disaster, and said to the angel who destroyed the people, It is enough. Now withdraw your hand. Yahweh's angel was by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David spoke to Yahweh when he saw the angel who struck the people, and said, Behold, I have sinned, and I have done perversely. But these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand be against me, and against my father's house. Gad came that day to David and said to him, Go up, build an altar to Yahweh on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David went up according to the saying of Gad, as Yahweh commanded. Araunah looked out and saw the king and his servants coming on toward him. Then Araunah went out and bowed himself before the king, with his face to the ground. Araunah said, Why has my lord the king come to his servant? David said, To buy your threshing floor, to build an altar to Yahweh, that the plague may be stopped from afflicting the people. Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Behold, the cattle for the burnt offering, and the threshing sledges, and the yokes of the oxen for the wood. All this, O king, does Araunah give to the king. Araunah said to the king, May Yahweh your God accept you. The king said to Araunah, No, but I will most certainly buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offerings to Yahweh my God, which cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. David built an altar to Yahweh there, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So Yahweh was entreated for the land, and the plague was removed from Israel. 1 Chronicles 21. Satan stood up against Israel, and moved David to take a census of Israel. David said to Joab and to the princes of the people, Go, count Israel from Beersheba even to Dan, and bring me word, that I may know how many there are. Joab said, May Yahweh make his people 100 times as many as they are. But my lord the king, aren't they all my lord's servants? Why does my Lord require this thing? Why will he be a cause of guilt to Israel? Nevertheless, the king's word prevailed against Joab. Therefore Joab departed and went throughout all Israel, then came to Jerusalem. Joab gave the sum of the census of the people to David. All those of Israel were 1,100,000 men who drew a sword, and in Judah were 470,000 men who drew a sword. But he didn't count Levi and Benjamin among them, for the king's word was abominable to Joab. God was displeased with this thing, therefore he struck Israel. David said to God, I have sinned greatly in that I have done this thing. But now put away, I beg you, the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. Yahweh spoke to Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and speak to David, saying, Yahweh says, I offer you 3 things. Choose one of them, that I may do it to you. So Gad came to David and said to him, Yahweh says, Take your choice, either 3 years of famine or 3 months to be consumed before your foes, while the sword of your enemies overtakes you, or else 3 days of the sword of Yahweh, even pestilence in the land, and Yahweh's angel destroying throughout all the borders of Israel. Now therefore consider what answer I shall return to him who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in distress. Let me fall, I pray, into Yahweh's hand, for his mercies are very great. Don't let me fall into man's hand. So Yahweh sent a pestilence on Israel, and 70,000 men of Israel fell. God sent an angel to Jerusalem to destroy it. As he was about to destroy, Yahweh saw, and he relented of the disaster, and said to the destroying angel, It is enough. Now withdraw your hand. Yahweh's angel was standing by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. David lifted up his eyes and saw Yahweh's angel standing between earth and the sky, having a drawn sword in his hand stretched out over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders, clothed in sackcloth, fell on their faces. David said to God, Isn't it I who commanded the people to be counted? It is even I who have sinned and done very wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand, O Yahweh my God, be against me and against my father's house, but not against your people, that they should be plagued. Then Yahweh's angel commanded Gad to tell David that David should go up and raise an altar to Yahweh on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. David went up at the saying of Gad, which he spoke in Yahweh's name. Ornan turned back and saw the angel, and his 4 sons who were with him hid themselves. Now Ornan was threshing wheat. As David came to Ornan, Ornan looked and saw David, and went out of the threshing floor and bowed himself to David with his face to the ground. Then David said to Ornan, Sell me the place of this threshing floor, that I may build an altar to Yahweh on it. You shall sell it to me for the full price, that the plague may be stopped from afflicting the people. Ornan said to David, Take it for yourself, and let my lord the king do that which is good in his eyes. Behold, I give the oxen for burnt offerings, and the threshing instruments for wood, and the wheat for the meal offering. I give it all. King David said to Ornan, No, but I will most certainly buy it for the full price. For I will not take that which is yours for Yahweh, nor offer a burnt offering that costs me nothing. So David gave to Ornan 600 shekels of gold by weight for the place. David built an altar to Yahweh there, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called on Yahweh. And he answered him from the sky by fire on the altar of burnt offering. Then Yahweh commanded the angel, and he put his sword back into its sheath. At that time, when David saw that Yahweh had answered him in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite, then he sacrificed there. For Yahweh's tabernacle, which Moses made in the wilderness, and the altar of burnt offering, were at that time in the high place at Gibeon. But David couldn't go before it to inquire of God, for he was afraid because of the sword of Yahweh's angel. 1 Chronicles 22. Then David said, This is the house of Yahweh God, and this is the altar of burnt offering for Israel. David gave orders to gather together the foreigners who were in the land of Israel, and he set masons to cut dressed stones to build God's house. David prepared iron in abundance for the nails for the doors of the gates and for the couplings, and bronze in abundance without weight, and cedar trees without number. For the Sidonians and the people of Tyre brought cedar trees in abundance to David. David said, Solomon my son is young and tender, and the house that is to be built for Yahweh must be exceedingly magnificent, of fame and of glory throughout all countries. I will therefore make preparation for it. So David prepared abundantly before his death. Then he called for Solomon his son and commanded him to build a house for Yahweh, the God of Israel. David said to Solomon his son, As for me, it was in my heart to build a house to the name of Yahweh, my God. But Yahweh's word came to me, saying, You have shed blood abundantly and have made great wars. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed much blood on the earth in my sight. Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall be a man of peace. I will give him rest from all his enemies all around, for his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quietness to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name, and he will be my son, and I will be his father. And I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Now, my son, may Yahweh be with you and prosper you, and build the house of Yahweh your God, as he has spoken concerning you. May Yahweh give you discretion and understanding, and put you in charge of Israel, so that you may keep the law of Yahweh your God. Then you will prosper, if you observe to do the statutes and the ordinances which Yahweh gave Moses concerning Israel. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid and don't be dismayed. Now behold, in my affliction I have prepared for Yahweh's house 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver and bronze and iron without weight, for it is in abundance. I have also prepared timber and stone, and you may add to them. There are also workmen with you in abundance, cutters and workers of stone and timber, and all kinds of men who are skillful in every kind of work. Of the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the iron, there is no number. Arise and be doing, and may Yahweh be with you. David also commanded all the princes of Israel to help Solomon his son, saying, Isn't Yahweh your God with you? Hasn't he given you rest on every side? For he has delivered the inhabitants of the land into my hand, and the land is subdued before Yahweh and before his people. Now set your heart and your soul to follow Yahweh your God. Arise, therefore, and build the sanctuary of Yahweh God, to bring the ark of Yahweh's covenant and the holy vessels of God into the house that is to be built for Yahweh's name. Psalm 30. I will extol you, Yahweh, for you have raised me up and have not made my foes to rejoice over me. Yahweh, my God, I cried to you, and you have healed me. Yahweh, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. You have kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing praise to Yahweh, you saints of his. Give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but joy comes in the morning. As for me, I said in my prosperity, I shall never be moved. You, Yahweh, when you favored me, made my mountain stand strong. But when you hid your face, I was troubled. I cried to you, Yahweh. I made supplication to the Lord. What profit is there in my destruction if I go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise you? Shall it declare your truth? Hear, Yahweh, and have mercy on me. Yahweh, be my helper. You have turned my mourning into dancing for me. You have removed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness, to the end that my heart may sing praise to you and not be silent. Yahweh, my God, I will give thanks to you forever.